Hi everyone, welcome back. So today is one of those cases that honestly I've been sitting with for a few days and I still don't really have the words for it. When you find a story that just hits you right in the gut and you realize that the person behind the file wasn't just a headline, that's exactly what today's story is. It's got that hidden in plain sight energy that honestly keeps me up at night. Because we're not just talking about a crime, we're talking about someone who thought they were clever enough to get away with it. Someone who sat through decades of their own secret, just waiting for the past to finally catch up. It's about how justice is messy and it's annoyingly slow, and sometimes it hits in the places you'd least expect. Grab a coffee or a cup of tea or whatever you're drinking because this one is a lot. Let's get into it. So, my friends, the story starts in Birmingham, Nova Welsh. If you talk to anyone who knew her, they wouldn't talk about her like she's a memory, but instead, they would talk about her like she's the heartbeat of a room. She was at 24, a mom to two young kids, and she was really trying to build something better for herself. She was trying to break out of a toxic cycle with her ex-boyfriend, Osmond Bell. And look, I think we've all known or heard of someone who dealt with that level of possessiveness. It wasn't love. It was this constant suffocating need for control. Nova was trying to move on. She was trying to close that door, but Osmond, he wasn't having it. I want you to imagine being Nova for a second, like I did when I first read about her. Like, you're young, you're juggling motherhood, and you're trying to navigate life while someone is constantly pulling you backward. It's that constant low-level anxiety. It's that feeling of looking over your shoulder. You're trying to keep the lights on, you're trying to raise your kids, and you're doing it all while walking on eggshells. By the way, it was a summer that should have been full of life, but unfortunately, it ended in the kind of silence that stays with you forever. Nova disappeared. People who knew her, her family, her friends, they knew instantly that something was wrong. She wouldn't just leave her kids, she was a mother first. That was her word. The normality of it all, everything looks like a regular everyday flat until you reach the utility cupboard. The door is shut, just a plain white wooden door. But when the detective reaches out to turn the handle, the air changes. You can almost feel the shifts in the room before they even see it, by the way. He pulls the handle, the door swings open, and the reality of what happened hits the room instantly. Nova was gone, her life was taken, and the person who did it didn't just kill her, he tried to erase her. He sealed that door, he locked it up, walked out of that flat, and probably convinced himself that as long as that door stayed shut, he was untouchable. He left her there in the dark, and he went back to his life like he hadn't just destroyed an entire family. And honestly, that's where the anger sets in, because when you see the scene, when you realize the sheer coldness it takes to do that, it just makes you realize how little he valued her life. He thought he was smart. He thought he was invisible. And looking back at it now, he was almost right. So the police are there, the scene is processed, and obviously the first person they bring in for questioning is her ex, Osmond Bell. And if you've ever watched a case like this, I bet you know the vibe. You expect a breakdown, right? You expect someone to be sobbing or at least showing some kind of humanity. But Osmond, he's the opposite. He's cold, he's calculated. He walks into that station like he's doing the police a favor by even showing up. Can you imagine? Nova is gone. Her life has been stolen. And this guy is sitting across from the detective, checking his watch and acting annoyed. He's got that, why am I even here attitude. It's a performance, and the scary part is, he's good at it. The police know, they know it's him. You can see it in their faces in the old reports. They have that gut instinct that the person who did this is sitting right in front of them. But back then, gut instinct doesn't hold up in court. They didn't have the DNA technology, they didn't have the digital trail, they didn't have anything except his word against theirs. So he plays the game and he plays it perfectly. He doesn't just sit there and say nothing, he decides to go on the offensive. A few days later, the police gets this anonymous letter. It's written to lead them away from him, pointing the finger at some other guy Nova had been seeing. And he's so confident. He uses this letter to weave a whole narrative, trying to convince the detectives, hey, look over there. Don't look at me, look at him. And it's sick. Honestly, it just feels like I'm watching a chess match where he's already made all the moves and the police are just trying to keep up, you know? He's sitting at home, maybe drinking a cup of coffee, feeling completely untouchable. He's convinced he's the smartest person in the room. And all that is not even the worst part, because the worst part is he wins. So what happens next is the detectives check out the letter. They investigate the other guy and they hit a dead end. They have no proof, no smoking gun, nothing. And for a long time, that's where the file stays in a box, gathering dust. Can you imagine being her sister, Sharon? You go to sleep every single night knowing exactly who did this to your sibling. You see him in the neighborhood, you see him living the best life of his, and you have to watch him get away with it. You have to watch him wake up every single morning while Nova never gets another sunrise. That frustration, that feeling that the system failed her, that is exactly why this case stays with you. Because for years, it wasn't a tragedy that was being solved. It was a tragedy that was being forgotten by everyone except the people who loved her. So fast forward to 2017. By this point, 36 years have gone by. That's an entire lifetime. Nova's kids have grown up, the world has changed completely, and Osmond Bell, he's an older man now. He's probably walked around all these years thinking he's completely in the clear. He's lived his life, he's made his choices, and he probably convinced himself that he actually got away with it. That he was just smarter than the police, but he didn't count one thing. Science doesn't forget. The police decide to open up that old evidence box, and I want you to imagine the detectives looking at the items they've kept for all these years. There was an envelope, the one he used to send that anonymous letter back in 1981, and a piece of chewing gum found at the scene. Okay, so back in the 80s, these were just dead ends. They were just objects in a bag. But by 2017, of course, they have this technology that can basically pull a person's identity out of thin air. They take that envelope flap, the one he has licked to sell that fake letter, and they test it. They also test the gum, and when those results come back, it's a full DNA profile, a perfect match. Can you imagine the moment that report hit the detective's desk? 36 years of him living a lie, all undone by a piece of gum he probably didn't even remember chewing, and a spit he used on an envelope to frame someone else. The sheer blending arrogance of it, he didn't just kill her. He walked back into that room, stood there, chewed some gum, and then thought he was clever enough to write a letter to throw the police off his trail. He literally left his own signature at the crime scene. When the police finally show up at his door in 2017, of course, he's not a young guy anymore, he's an old man. They put him in handcuffs, and I really want you to think about that shift. 1 minute you're sitting in your living room, living the life you built on a foundation of a secret, and the next minute, your past literally breaks down your door. He thought he was invisible. He thought he was untouchable, but the truth, it was just waiting in a box, sitting in a basement for the right technology to come along and finally say his name. So they finally get him into the courtroom, and after waiting 36 years for justice, I was really expecting to read that he was regretting what he has done and he has thought about it all the past years, and I was seriously expecting him to show some remorse now that he's an old man, you know? But literally that's not what happened. Watching him in court was, it was infuriating. Even with the DNA match, even with the evidence staring at him right in the face, he still tried to play games. He had the audacity to keep coming up with excuses. It's like he was trying to protect this clever image he'd built for himself for 3 decades, even when the truth had already shattered it. But the good thing is, it's for the first time his words did not matter. The judge, of course, didn't care about his excuses. They cared about all the fact that he took a mother away from her children. They cared that he let a family live in the dark for 36 years while he just moved on with his life. And then the family finally got their moment. They got to stand up and tell the world who Nova was. Not the victim in the headline, not the missing person in a file, but Nova. They spoke about the person who was the heartbeat of their room, the mom, the sister, the person with all that potential. And watching them get to speak that truth, it's only part of this entire story that feels like real justice. When the verdict came down, guilty, the room changed. It wasn't just a legal outcome, it was the weight of 36 years finally being lifted. He was sentenced to life, but even then, he's still not young, and he spent more of his life free than he ever will behind bars. And while he sits there in a cell, finally stuck with the truth he tried to bury, the rest of us are left to think about how much damage one person can do when they don't value the life of someone else. Nova's sister Sharon said it best. The truth always comes out. And she was right. It just took a long time. So, if you take anything away from today's story, let it be this. No one is ever really untouchable, even when it feels like the system is failing, even when it feels like the silence is going to last forever. The truth has a way of waiting. It waits in the files, it waits in the evidence, and eventually it finds its way to the surface. Nova Welsh didn't get to finish her story, but at least she finally got to have the last word. Do you think 36 years later is actually justice? Or is it just a late consolation prize? Could you ever really find peace if you were in Sharon and Nova's kid's shoes, knowing it took this long? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'm really curious to see where you all stand on this. And if you want me to cover more of these cases where the past finally catches up to the person, make sure to hit that like button so I know. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.